Hello, everyone. This is Mike Koss, founder of KevAdvotech, and I'm here today with John Langan. And I'm going to introduce him in a minute and let him further introduce himself. But I've had the great pleasure of knowing John now for 3+ years when we first bought a home, second home down in Central Florida, in the Villages, Florida. And John runs a special needs group. He's got a nonprofit that he's organized and runs. And John is a wealth of information on special needs services. And if John doesn't know it, I could almost guarantee that he could point you or I to someone that does know. And absolutely. And just to back up a second, while we at KevAdvotech are focused on technology topics, technology that will help advance and advocate for special needs, we continue to look at that. What we also want to do is we want to take the time and the opportunity to meet other people serving the special needs community and really give a shout out to them. And John is my first guest on this type of program format, and I'm thrilled to have him. John, thank you for joining and welcome.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you and your community, and hopefully there'll be a lot of good, solid information that they can move forward with now and in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the objective here today, John, and to the audience, we hope to provide some information that you may not have been aware of, or quite often if you have a special needs loved one, like both John and I do, and I'm going to let John, I want to hear John and have him share more about his family, gotten to know his family and his son over the last 3 years. And but I think most of us would agree that have special needs loved ones, special needs children and adult children, so many things are overwhelming, right? You can hear information, there's a lot out there on the web, there's a lot of government agencies and websites, but it's overwhelming. And so for me personally, I've got to hear this stuff sometimes 3, 4, 5, and 6 times until it starts to sink in, and you get a little bit smarter each time. So today we hope to, perhaps provide some new information that some of you may not have been aware of, or reinforce some information that you're already aware of or have been thinking about. And again, I want to highlight the contributions that John has made to the community here, and a big shout out of appreciation. So John, before we dive into a little bit more about you and you share your family and background and that with our audience, and just throwing a question out there, what kind of thing, what would you say the top 2 or 3 things are that families that you meet with a special needs loved one, as they're reaching out for some information and help, what are some things that they typically ask? Is there a common theme? I mean, again, I mentioned that we can be information can be very overwhelming and not sink in, but you do a great job always for each of us helping filter through that. So what do you hear on a typical basis from parents or loved ones?
Yeah, so most of the issues for most families is really long-term planning. A lot of it's around what happens to my child, my adult child, when they get older. What do I do? How do I plan for that? What agencies might be available to help assist with that, both financially and service-wise? And how do I get started? And how do I connect the dots? There's so many, they go on the internet and they're looking at this agency, and then they get a link to another provider, or they get a link to another agency, and you just can't connect A to B to C. And so you get frustrated, you don't know what to do. Or you talk to another family that's kind of went through some of it. They get confused and frustrated, or they don't get the results they were expecting. They get mad and they throw up their hands and say, I'm done with all of this. And then they just go through life struggling because they forgot the one key issue that I always tell parents. No is really the first answer to yes. So when you go and apply for a service, they're going to tell you, no, you don't qualify, or no, you didn't fill out this paper correctly, or no, we don't have funding. So if you can, try to go in with the mindset to say, okay, look, no is just the first step to a yes. How do we get to yes? That's what you need to try to get these folks that you're working with to get to yes. And when they get past that, then you start working together and collaborating and getting the step forward that you need to get those services that are so critical to your children.
Sure.
And a lot of parents don't want to deal with government agencies because they're prideful, right? They want to be able to take care of families. This is my kid, my responsibility. But the cost long-term to care for your child is astronomical. So unless you're a multi-millionaire, you're not going to be able to afford the services long-term. So
Right.
better to suck up your pride and your ego and get into these agencies and start to,
Right.
tap them and tap their resources and see what you can get. Two key agencies that you should focus on, at least here in Florida, is APD, Agencies of Persons with Disabilities. And that allows families to apply for what's called waiver funding. And waiver funding is basically waiving your child's rights to being placed into an institution or facility, and you're given funded based on their evaluation and assessment. So your child might need $50,000 a year for services to provide for them. My child who's in a facility, that facility provides 24/7 supports 365 days a year. It's over $500,000 a year to provide those services. So there's different spectrums, different needs and services for people, but APD is a starting point to get into a wait list for those services as your situation changes going forward. And the other agency is Social Security. Social Security is income for your child, both as a child while you're working. If you're low income, they'll provide you still with a check for your child for services. It's called SSI, Supplemental Social Security Income. And then as they get older, they'll either collect Social Security disability off of your work record, or if they've been working, to be able to accumulate enough time and collect off their own work record over time. But Social Security is either SSI or SSDI or DAC, Disabled Adult Child, to which the source of income for your child. It's not a whole lot. State of Florida, SSI, $755 a month. Try living on that, right? It's ridiculous. So those are just two of the agencies just to start out with, to give you a little food for thought. And if you want later on, we can come back to several other things that are out there. So
no, that's awesome. So yeah, we'll come back to that in a little bit more detail. So John, I'd like to hear your backstory. I think it's, as I started out this conversation, you have just become over time a wealth of information here in this community in Central Florida. And we're also thankful and grateful for what you do. And the amazing part is you just give hours and hours and weeks and months. And it's just, I just met with someone last evening, and I won't mention her name, but we met with her and her children. You know them, and I know them. And she was telling me, she said, before I even moved here, she said, I had a 3-hour phone conversation with John Lange. And I'm like, wow, you spent 3 hours and he gave you 3 hours. And I know that from personal, because you and I have spent time one-on-one multiple times. So I'm thinking, you're doing that, 100, 200 times over. It's just amazing. So if you could just, introduce yourself, give us your backstory. Tell us about your family, where you moved from, and how long you've been down here, and how did you start to really build
this thing going.
Yeah, get this thing going.
Yeah, I got
Tell
you.
us about your group.
So me personally, I was born and raised in the South Bronx, New York City, and had an amazing career. I I was married for 41 years. My wife recently passed away 2 years ago, which you know of. And that was really an eye opener for life planning, but I'm a big life planner. So my son, Joseph, who's my second child, I have a daughter who's now 39, beautiful young lady. She's a mom now, so I'm a grandpa. My grandson just turned 2 years old. So that's a blessing. Again, my son, April 11th, he'll be 34 years old. He was diagnosed with a seizure disorder at 8 months. At 8 months old, he had a seizure. It affected the frontal lobe of his brain, the L6 section of the brain. And of course, it impacted his cognitive skills. So today he's 34, going on about 6 or 7 years old. But he's a big strapping man. He's almost 6 foot and he's mobile. So he is nonverbal, although he does echoely. So he'll repeat what you tend to say. You know, if you say, Joey, come here, he'll say, Joey, come here, type of thing, as opposed to saying what or what do you want, or, you know, things like that. He's difficult for him to express his needs. So we do a lot of picture sentences and structuring, you know, like I want to go out, I want to, you know, food, soda. So, but he is nonverbal. The seizures, his entire life, he's been on every medication known to mankind. When he was 19, I found out about a device called VNS, vagus nerve stimulator. It's kind of a little pacemaker that they plant in the chest. And then it connects some wires around the neck, and it shoots electrical pulses to the stem of the brain to try to mitigate the offset of any seizures that are coming on. But even with that, after 9 years, the batteries died and he's still having problems. So he's on a new medication along with what he's been on called Epidiolex. It's a seizure medication. It's a CBD oil. And he's quadrupled his dosage from the start and he's still having seizures. So it's been a tough road dealing with that, dealing with services in school when he was younger, in terms of being an advocate for your child. I mean, you really, really need to step up and put your pride in your back pocket and not allow for labels to make a difference for the services that your child needs. Like back in 1988, when my son was diagnosed, you know, back then they used the R word, right?
Oh yeah.
He's going to be, I'm going to say it, he's going to be mentally retarded is what was the words back then. Right now there's a big push. It's now converted to intellectual disability. So he's intellectually challenged as well. But for me, I didn't care, Mike. I didn't care. I don't care what you label my kid, as long as he gets the services that he needs. So I don't really care. You can call it whatever you like. And because I took that aggressive approach, I didn't get offended by stuff, and I just moved forward, and I was able to fight for my son's rights. You know, he was in school. He needed an aid. He needed an aid with him, because if he had a seizure at the top of the stairs, he'll just fall over and down he goes. And they refused. They said, we don't have the budget, we don't have the time. So I just came back and, you know, just kind of really laid it. You know, first of all, federal law says you have to provide these services. So you better figure out a way. I don't care if you got to take a cut in pay, don't get an increase for 2 years. I don't care what you need to do, but my son needs these services. So we came to a compromise, and he said, we'll give you 3 months of one-on-one with your child. We'll see how well he does, how he adapts in school. That 3 months turned into 3 years.
Wow.
You know, so you really just have to let no be an answer, but not be the answer, right? Just got to keep moving forward with that. So 11 years ago, I was blessed to come and move to the Villages. I worked for 4 years at home because I was in technology. So everything I did was risk management. It was all computers. So it was easier to just be at home. And through that, of course, I wound up being more my son's caregiver during the time we were here in the Villages than I was working my career in New York, right? Because you're busy working 12 hours a day, right? Yep. So here I was able to spend more time with him and get more involved. And then I got early retirement. And so I retired at 57. And I was blessed to be able to do that and spend more and more time with my Joey. When I got to the Villages, Sumter County did not have a Special Olympics program. So I got involved with a couple of people. We started the organization up here in Sumter County, and we started with a basketball program that had 5 athletes. Within a year, we had 50 athletes. Of course, we opened up to bocce, and we opened up to golf, and we've opened it up to cheerleading, and I forget there's soccer is another program. So all of these programs just evolved just from that one kickoff. And over
Sure.
the years, it just grew and expanded. And I started my group first as just a support group, wasn't a nonprofit. Um, and I started out with 12 families. And I actually went to a group setting because it was exhausting trying to share everything with one family at a time, right? You're repeating yourself 100 million times. So I was able to create this group, the support group in the villages, able to get a monthly location to hold my meetings. And the group grew from 12 to like 100 in months. And
Wow.
then months later, 6 months later, 8 months later, I was up to 200. Now I'm sitting close to about 250, of which about 225 is village residents. So
That's a
there's a lot of
people.
families.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've got so well known that the village's realtors have my information. And when they get a potential customer with a disabled adult child,
Right.
they connect me with that family. And I'll do exactly what you said before, right? I'll spend 2-3 hours with that family, either face to face with coffee or just like this talking, and either be able to provide them with guidance and direction to actually go move forward and come to the villages and be here and be with their family, or
I think that's how I met you, John.
Yeah,
was
that's how-
through
right.
my realtor said,
Yeah.
hey, I think you need to call this guy, right? And
right.
that's
And then
how
we just kind of sat and said, well,
Yeah.
what are the services you have in the state that you're in? What do you have your child's entitled to? And then what do you want in the future? You know, because down here in Florida, it's not that easy, and resources are not that well available. It's just everything's a wait list and time, and everything
Right.
takes forever. So anyway, I started that group, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then 2 years ago, my wife passed away, and I was praying, figuring out what I should do with my group, and it just came to me to become a nonprofit. I didn't want to become a business, but I just did. I just said, this is what I
Sure.
have to do. This is what I need to do. And in becoming a nonprofit, I'm really self-funding. I don't go out, I don't seek, I'm not chasing money, and I'm not asking for donations. I'll accept contributions, but I'm not seeking it, right? I
Right.
have a set budget that I know in retirement I can put aside to this organization. And with that, I've been blessed to be able to purchase wheelchair for a family that's in that donut hole where
Mhm.
the government's not providing, they don't make enough to do it. And I'm
They
blessed
need
to be
it
able to
now.
be there.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to be able to be their resource for them and get that done. And so I may only be helping at that level, 2 or 3 families a year in terms of finances for things that they need. But I know that I'm helping at least 100 to 200 families all the time with, inquiries and stuff like that. The problem is a lot of families wait until crisis.
Sure.
They hear the information, they like the information, they get it over and over again, but they don't take that action. And you really have to take the actions. You have to go and look at these facilities for residential, and you got to get that, hair on the back of your neck to go, yeah, this is a good place. I put my son here or my daughter here, or no, I wouldn't let a rat
Right.
live here. So,
Residential is tough.
yeah,
It's,
that's big. That's huge, right? That is absolutely huge for all of us. I've been blessed to be able to place my son in a facility. He's been in now going on 3 years, and we were able to place him 8 months before my wife passed away, and she was able to see him adapt to the environment, see the care that they have for him. So that gave her peace of mind, right?
comfort. Yep.
And that really did give her comfort. And also it eased me because I was providing 24 supports to her and caring with her and trying to care for him, shave him, dress him, shower him, take him out. Yourself, it's a real straining task unless you walk in the shoes
It's a
of someone who's
full-time
doing it.
job, Right.
It really is. But it's also a blessing because there's so many rewards. When my
Totally.
Joey turns around and just says, hey, Dad, can I have a soda? I know that sounds really simple, Mike,
Yep.
but when he can construct a complete sentence like that for his needs, my heart just pounds with joy that,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then you think you want the next thing to come out to be something more, and it's not.
Right. Oh, I can relate
like-
totally.
It's
Kevin
a
is
complete,
the
it's like,
same
oh my
way.
God.
Kevin
So-
gives me one complete sentence and something reassuring, and it's like, wow, that
Right?
just made my week. So I
Exactly.
understand totally.
Yeah. So I've been blessed. I've really been blessed to be able to get this organization off the ground. I have tremendous volunteers helping me. They're absolutely amazing. 2 women have been with me for the 6 years I've been at this. And it's all just volunteer. I mean, no one's getting paid in my organization. Everybody's just putting in their time. And we're all of people with needs for our children. So it's a common base, right? We're all have a common
Sure.
cause. And so I've been really, really, really blessed. And now, of course, I'm moving forward, with my life, with my wife, my future wife now, Paula, that I've been
Yep,
blessed to meet and now
congratulations
engaged. So I
again.
appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Joey has embraced that situation. And we just had him the other day. He was here for the weekend for my grandson's second birthday.
I
It was
saw the
amazing.
bowling pictures.
Yeah, I took him to Leesburg. All the other lanes were booked with leagues, so
Yeah.
they happen to have an open lane. So yeah, I try to share on Facebook, and that's another audience, if you will, Mike, that I help out a lot. I'm involved in about 6 or 7 support groups on Facebook, and I'm
Mhm.
constantly sharing information with those families as well to try to just give them next steps, because there is so much we need to do to plan for the future of our kids.
Yeah, no,
So-
you're spot on. No, John, that's an amazing backstory, and thank you for sharing that. And I hope you continue to do what you do, because this community is just, they're so embracing and thankful for everything. So if we could step back just a little bit, let's talk, a few more details around, some of these agencies and even back to SSI and SSDI. I
Mhm.
try to learn from some of the meetings of yours that I attended on how it works when you're changing states, for example, right?
Mm.
I'm still a state of Michigan resident. We want to move down to Florida at some point.
Sure.
But there are some things that
Yeah.
I need to be aware of. Like, I think for if your son or daughter, special needs loved one, has Medicaid, for example, that doesn't come over state to state with SSI, for example.
Yeah. Here's a
Can you talk a little bit about that? Let's start with
Sure.
that one.
Okay, that sounds good. So, yeah, that's one thing I try to tell families that are coming from another. First of all, I try to assess what they have in the state that they're in, because you don't want to be giving up a whole lot of stuff if you're already set and ready to go.
Right.
But if you don't, but you do have Medicaid, and if you do have SSI as an income or Social Security, when you come to Florida, first thing they're going to tell you is you have to stop your Medicaid services in the state that you're from, right? So you
Yep.
drop that, then you come to Florida as a resident in Florida, and then you apply for Medicaid. And that's all well and good. But if you follow that, you're going to be 2-3 months or more without Medicaid for your child, right? Because
Yep.
once you give it up in the state you're in, you're no longer covered. So I always try to tell parents, listen, don't give that up until you actually have the services here in Florida. Now, I had a very
Yep.
easy transition, Mike. I came down, I went to Social Security Administration. I told them I was moving. I was my child's representative for his SSI, and they
Mhm.
simply just changed the address, and boom, I was done.
Okay,
And then I was able to call New York and say, okay,
drop it.
I'm
Yep,
done.
yep.
And I have families, I'm telling you now, they follow that rule because they call Florida Social Security and they say you have to drop it and then come back and reapply. And they're 3-6 months without anything. And you just pray that your child
That's
doesn't have any
scary. Yeah,
illnesses or any
that's
conditions,
a
because
helpless
then it's
spot.
a
Yep.
major out of the pocket expense, right?
Yep.
So that's where you can't just follow. Sometimes you can't just follow the rules,
Sure.
because things don't work the way they're supposed to. And the last thing you want to do is be without coverage for your son. I always had my son covered with Medicaid, but he was always on my primary medical insurance from working.
Sure.
I was able to
Yep.
keep him on that really literally until he was 32. And then when he moved to the facility, Medicaid covered everything for him. So I took him off my insurance because I didn't need to do that, because now he has Medicare and Medicaid. So
Right.
he's fully covered with medical coverage. But you listen and then you get in trouble and you regret it. So I just say, look, it's good to follow the rules sometimes, but I'd rather
Yeah.
have that safety net for my child than not. So
Yeah, well,
yeah, so
especially when it comes to insurance, that's.
now
huge.
one thing you definitely should know, and most parents may or may not know, is if you have Social Security in a prior state and you drop it and you come to Florida, and let's say you had Medicaid and you came to Florida, but now your child's qualified for Medicare, right? So you
Yep.
have Medicare because they're on disability as opposed to SSI, right? They get Medicare. you think, okay, great. They have the same doctors as I do because I'm retired and I have Medicare and everything's going to be fine. But Medicaid is the ticket to long-term care coverage. If you don't have long-term care, then if your child gets placed into a nursing home, Medicare covers 180 days. That's it. After that, you're done. So you got to go through all your financials, sell your house, whatever you got to do, right? Until you're broke. But if you keep your Medicaid, it's called protected Medicaid. If you keep that, then if they end up having issues where you can't take care of anyone, they go into a facility, right? You don't have to spend everything down. You don't have to sell your house. It's just covered under long-term coverage. So it's real important. But if you do lose it when you come, you can get it back as long as you had it.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, a lot of families who are, I don't say wealthy, but well enough to not feel that they want Medicaid for their children,
Mhm.
they don't get it. And then their child becomes an adult, and then they want them to have Social Security disability income, right? But
Right.
now, because they've never had the Medicaid, they can never get it.
Yeah.
So you don't have long-term care for your child. You can't get, unless your child becomes totally impoverished, right? You throw them out in the
Right.
street, you're not taking care of them anymore, whatever. Then of course, they have no choice. But you know,
But
you don't
obviously,
want to,
you want
do
to
that.
get in front of it, right?
Right. You
don't
just want to be ahead of it. You need to know about
Yeah.
it and just don't lose it. And Social Security, SSI, once you apply for that and qualify, you automatically qualify for Medicaid. And it's based on and when they're an adult, it's based on the child's income. So it's
Sure.
not based on household income. When they're little, when they're under 18, then it depends on your household income. But you still should apply. Do you know what I mean? You still should
Yep.
apply.
Yeah.
So
Good
that way
point.
you're in the system and you're documented, and when things start to change, at least they'll be entitled to that benefit. But if
Right.
you're low income, then chances are you'll get that supplemental assistance along with the Medicaid and along with food stamps, as long as you go to Child Family Services, which is another provider service.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
so that's it.
Yeah,
Good.
no, that's good information, John. Thank you. I want to step back to the other thing that we talked about at the top as well, which are some of the agencies, right? You mentioned here in Florida, APD. I realize on a national level, I mean, there's programs in every state, of course, but the agencies sometimes have different names, and
Mhm.
what can you share about your experience on, some of these important agencies and similarities across states that,
Yeah. So the biggest thing that you really want to do is make sure you find an agency that will provide uh, funding for what's called home and community-based services. So if you don't want your child living in an institute, for lack of term, an institution,
Yep.
well, like my son's in what's called an ICF, an intermediate care facility, right?
Mhm.
If you don't want that, then you want to definitely be able to get what's called a Medicaid waiver. And every state has it. I know the state of Pennsylvania, I think it's called MHMR, Mental Health and Mental Retardation Department. They've never changed the acronym.
Yeah.
And that's similar to APD in terms of waiver funding. But again, like every state, there's a wait list. Funds are, chewed up, and they're constantly trying to get funding, but the threshold of people that are coming on that are needed services are greater than the fundings that they have available. Because the funding that they make available, it's not a short-term funding. It's not like Kevin needs today, let's say Kevin needs, or Joey needs $25,000 worth of services because he's going to have someone come into the house and take him out bowling in the community, or take him to the movies as a companion,
Right.
and then maybe take him shopping and maybe prepare his meals. So overall for the year, that might say 50 grand, right?
Yeah.
But over time, he may need other services, like he may need someone to come in and clean the house and prepare his meals, or to dress him. And so all those services cost money, right? Now you don't
Yeah.
need them initially, but later on you do. So you need to get reevaluated, reassessed, and then you requalify for more funding, right? And then hopefully you get the funding, but the funding is only the first step. That's just money available by the government.
Sure.
From
And
that,
and then you got
the
to
next step, the
manage
next
every
step is,
step of the way.
right,
Yep.
the next step is, okay, now that you've allocated me this money, who do I spend it on? Right? Who are these providers that are coming in that's going to help me uh, take care of my child? And these agencies, all they do is give you a list of providers. To say, here's 15 providers that take care of companionship. Now you have to go through those 15 and figure out which is the best fit for my kid, right? So, you have to interview those people, figure out, yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, okay, and so you got to be the hire or fire of the services. So the money's there, but you still have to be the one picking and choosing, right? Because no one wants to be liable for you, for your choices, right? If you
Yeah,
pick the
right.
wrong agency,
It's on
and
you.
you
It's
know,
on
you want to go
us.
and right, you want to go and yell at them, right? Hey, you told
Yep.
me this agency was good. Well, no, we didn't. We just said, here's a list of agencies
Yep,
that
you
are
go do your
licensed
homework.
to be able to
Yep.
bill us. They're licensed to bill us, so you get to use them because they can use the money, but you got to pick and choose. So there's a lot of misunderstanding of how these services work. And that's what I try to help with the families, how to connect those dots, because it's very, very frustrating to apply for something, you get it, and then it's now what? Or when you get on what's called a wait list, and like in Florida for APD, there's 23,000 people waiting for services, waiting for funding.
Mind-boggling. Yep.
The thing is that people look at that 23,000 and go, okay, I'm going to be 23,005. No, you're not assigned a number. You're just not assigned. That's just the number of people that need services. The way you get services is based on the assessment that they do. They do what's called a QSI. It's a questionnaire of services. And then that categorizes your services and needs into a category 1, category 0 is crisis, then all the way down to category 7, right? So you may not need services. People say, oh, I've been on a wait list for 15 years. Yeah, that's true. But did your situation change in life yet? No, my son is, everything is the way it's always been. Okay. When your situation changes, then you got to go back, do a situation review, recategorize it, and end up with move up with that circumstances. Right. Yep. So a lot of people get frustrated because, oh, I've been waiting for 15 years and I got nothing. Well, you're not assigned a number. There's no number coming up. It's not like you, you have to be the advocate for your child, right? You have to know what's, how the system processes. Yeah. And so you really do need to know that you're on a wait list, but you're not, it's not a number.
Right. It's one of the things you mentioned, I've heard in your meetings from time to time too, in a crisis situation, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, if somebody, is there an age? Like I thought you said 70 or.
Yeah, so let me go. So with a crisis, right? It's either your child is a danger to them, to themselves or others, right? So if they're physically beating you up or beating themselves up and banging their heads against the wall, there are children with behavioral issues
absolutely.
So if they're a danger to themselves or others, then that's a crisis situation. And you go right to the top of the class if you want them out of your home, or maybe you can get ABA services to come in, behavioral services come in, and maybe they can figure out the trigger points and what's causing the behaviors and maybe kind of settle and temper things down and get paid for by the government agency. So that's a crisis situation. Or in Florida here now, they do have an age category. It's 70. So if you're age 70 and above, which means that your child chances are in their 50s or 60s, right? Mm-hmm. Usually around that kind of age group. That can help you move towards a crisis situation because you're so elderly now that you really can't provide the day-to-day services that your child really needs.
Right? It's hard.
Right? And especially if you happen to lose a spouse and that spouse was the primary caregiver to your child. Yeah. If you're not the one that's on top of them every day, like my Joey was he was sewed to my hips. I was like Mr. Mom, right? He was just there with me all the time. If people saw me, they go, "Where's Joey?" Right? Yep. It's like it was just I was never without him. So I was his primary caregiver. Diane did everything she can to care for him, but when it came to stuff like this, it was all I did the research, I did inquiries, I did all the interviews, I did all the paperwork, and so I was like the primary person. So when you lose that primary person, now you're really in a crisis. Right, because you don't know really which way to turn. Even when you do know everything, we usually don't act until there is a crisis, right? Until we just can't handle it no more.
Right.
And that's really not a,
Unfortunately, but
yeah,
that's,
and that's not
that's
really a
what
good
happens.
plan. You know,
Yeah.
I try to tell people, look, if you're thinking that your child is not going to stay in your own home and have community-based services in that home, that they're going to go and live in a group home or they're going to go live in a facility, you need to go and check those places out and make sure. And if you can, have your child placed sooner while you're still alive, right? And see
Ideally,
how that
yeah.
place is working, right? Because if it's not working, you can change your mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can say, okay, nope, that's not good. I want them here. I'm going to go to this other place, right? And try it there. But when you're gone, you can't make those choices, right? You're just not there for it. So, and whoever you put in charge to be the trustee or the caregiver, you know, over your child, they got to be the ones to, and you may place your child in one place and it may be working for 6 months, a year, but then things change. They change management, they change people, things change. So you
Sure.
need someone to watch over that. You need to plan for that. And they have to be strong enough to say, listen, I don't want, you know, I don't want Joey in this place anymore. I want him in this other facility or this other, you know,
Sure.
home-based place. And even if you have home and community-based services, Mike, where you're getting funding for the house and you're having caregivers coming in to cook, clean, shower, whatever needs to be done, you're hiring those people, right? APD is giving you the budget, but you're the one that's picking and choosing these providers. So when
Yeah.
you're gone, right, who's left to pick those providers?
Right.
And those providers change employees and staff like we change socks.
It's a tough,
Because-
it's tough duty.
Because
right? There's a
society
lot of
looks at them
turnover.
as being babysitters and not really professional caregivers. You know, they're not, in the mind of society, they're just babysitters. Even though they may have degrees and masters in behaviorals and services, nursing services, the society is looking, so they don't get paid. So these people don't look at it as a career, they look at it as a job, right?
Right.
I have a job to do. I gotta spend 2 hours here with this kid,
Yeah.
right?
And
As
you
opposed
have-
to it being a passion and saying, I love doing this and I'm getting a good salary to keep me motivated to keep this. And so that paradigm needs to change. You know, we need to
Totally
get people
agree.
to really look at that and go, no, this is a necessary service for the quality of life of this person that has unfortunately been provided, for lack of a better term, a short straw.
No,
know?
we need, absolutely, we need to attract people to this profession, young people to this
Yes.
profession as
Yep.
well,
Yep.
and pay them. Pay, you know,
Yes.
it's gotta be better pay,
Right.
better benefits, and, yeah, it's not getting better, it's getting worse, right?
It is getting worse because because it's considered to really not be a value add a quality of life for these people, because people don't
Right.
look at it that way. They just say, okay, you know, you're kind of a glorified babysitter. But it's so much more than that. You know, I mean, when you're providing those services, I mean, you're providing quality of care for a
Right.
person's life. You know, it's
It's the
just
most important thing. I mean,
it really is. And
It's a-
planning is the key. Like,
Yeah, and I kind of equate a lot of this to, planning and caring for the elderly, right?
Yep.
Put special needs aside. It's
Ex-
very,
exactly.
very similar, the similar
Yep.
needs, similar challenges, right? Hard to
Mhm.
attract,
Yep.
workers that are in it for the career, and
Right.
pay needs to improve, et cetera. So no, it's.
well, you know, you mentioned about the other side of the coin, right? I always said
Yeah.
I have a double-edged sword that I'm working with, right? One is obviously our kids and our adult children that are in needs of services, but the
Yeah.
other side of the coin is that we do have elderly parents. I mean, I'm old, but not that old, right? I mean, I'm only 65, but you know, I'm going to be there one day,
I'm
right?
right
But I have
with you.
parents I have parents that are 80, right, and 85 years old. So you know, if they have a hip replacement or a knee replacement, and they're at a sorts in a nursing home recovering, who's caring for their adult child at home?
Yeah.
Right? And how do you plan for that? Well, I'll tell you, one good thing about the villages is there's a service provider called Tri-County Services. It's head up by Kathy Haviland, and her goal is to help seniors plan for caregiving services if things like that happen. If there's no one to help take care of them, she
Okay.
helps plan that out. And how that, if they end up in a nursing home, if they have a pet dog that needs to be kenneled or taken care of, or if they have an adult child with disabilities that they need someone to
Mhm.
come in and help out, she helps to do that detailed planning for seniors. So now in the villages, at least, there's that opportunity to say, you know, I'm 85 years old, I can't do this no more, I need help. And you can get all the help that you need for you as a senior person. But in addition, they would consider the services and needs for your child and help out in that way too, in terms of planning.
Yeah,
So um,
that's amazing. It's great
yeah.
to know that something like that is available, at least here. And, you know, I'm hoping and
Yeah.
assuming, you know,
Yeah,
there's
'cause it took me 2 years.
pockets of these kind of
Yeah, I mean, I was 2 years
people
on the run.
elsewhere.
Yeah, I was 2 years in, and it occurred to me, what about these senior citizens?
Yeah,
Who takes care of them? If they, you know, have a knee replacement or whatever, and they have to go to a nursing home for 6 weeks while they're rehabbing, who's taking care of their 40-year-old child,
right.
you know? So it's kind of scary. So obviously this individual saw there was a need and created our own company and put it together. So it's a
that's
plus for
awesome.
us, for the seniors in the villages, for sure.
Well, what we're talking about here, John, you know, housing, long-term housing, where are our children, adult children going to go when we leave
Yep.
this earth? That's what I personally wake up worrying about every day, right? So that's a big part of
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's
what
only,
I'm trying to figure out, and we're not getting any younger, as you
no, we're
said.
not,
So,
Mike. That's the
so
truth.
you know, our
The
goal.
sooner you can pull the trigger, the better, man. Let me
Right,
tell you.
so
Yeah.
my goal certainly is, you know, sometime over the next 3 to 5 years, right, get something lined up for Kevin, and because I don't want to put this on his brother. He's only got one brother, and
Same thing with my daughter. I mean, she
Right.
has her own 2-year-old baby. She does not need a 36-year-old, 6-year-old.
yep,
You know, she doesn't. She just, so she loves her brother. She would do it if she had no other options because she loves her brother. But
yep.
it's not a question of love. It's a question of
Yeah,
ability, time,
it's not fair.
services.
You don't want to do
Right.
that to your
You know,
other
it's just not.
children.
And now my daughter's grateful, Mike. My daughter's grateful. Her only complaint now is that, Dad, it takes me 2 hours to drive to go see Joey. All right. Well, if that's your only complaint, you know,
Right, yeah.
be with it.
That's
So-
not a bad problem.
So basically, you got 3 options, Mike. One is that you're able to work with APD med waiver funding to provide what they call home and community-based services for you in your home, so that if anything happened to you, Kevin could stay in that house, but you can document the services that he needs, and then set up a schedule of providers to provide those services. And then so he's in the home, he's in the community, safe where you want him to be in the house that he's in, and everything is fine. That's one option, right? You can do it
Yeah.
home and community-based services. The other one would be to have him transfer into a group home where other people are managing and there are other peers in the group home with him,
Mhm.
and get the services that way. And APD would provide funding for those services. So you're in your home, he's got his own home, he's more independent, and you get a chance to see how that's working, right?
Sure.
And
Yep.
you might be really happy with that. Or final trigger would be like I had to do with my Joey, because he did require 24/7 supports. Place him in a wonderful facility. It's a 12-acre estate facility called New Horizons Village. It's owned and operated by this corporation called Mentor, which
Yeah.
operates in 36 states. So there's a lot of transfer mobility if we're needed. I think they
Mhm.
have about 27 facilities in Florida. They also operate group homes as well. So
Okay.
it's a huge organization, which I kind of like, because I don't think they're going to go out of business anytime soon, as
Sure.
opposed to a group home that's owned and operated by an individual. You know, a lot of parents start up a group home for their kid and they bring in other children and they're the caregivers and they're taking care of that. And then their
Right.
expectation is that, well, my daughter will take up or my son will take up the business when I'm gone. Well,
That doesn't happen.
I don't know
all the
about most people, but my experience has been when dad creates a business,
time.
kids really don't want the business. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
absolutely.
you know, so I don't think they're going to want to own and operate. And so then it goes out of business. So then the state has to come in. They have to pick it up and find places for these people to be.
Yeah.
So it's really, but you'd have peace of mind that someone's taking care of it, right? And then if they're in an institution or facility like my Joey, you know, they really do, they have ACA rules that they have to follow. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, they get assessed every year. I looked at 10 years of ACA reporting on New Horizons Village. I checked out all their
Wow.
deficiencies before I placed my son.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest deficiency that caught my eye was one of the years, many years back, one of the nurses that was working there for 10 years or something like that, with the child, she was dispensing the meds. Well, apparently when she was being reviewed on this, she had given the person pills to take,
Mhm.
and she turned her back to get prep for another patient, so to speak, and she got written up because there was no way she didn't witness the person taking the pill, and so they got written up for that, and so that became a deficiency and a retraining for that person.
Wow. Okay.
And when you think about it, right, you say, yeah, you're right. I mean, they should be watching to know. But when you understand someone's behaviors for 10 years and you've been dealing with them for all that time,
Mhm.
you kind of know, you got an idea where they're going to take the pill or not, right?
Right.
So she
Exactly.
was just comfortable knowing, this person's going to do what they've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's still not protocol. But that was like the worst. That was like
That
the
is-
worst
and
thing that I saw.
Yeah. And
That
that's not so
the
bad.
facility, yeah, and that in the facility was old and it didn't have sprinkler systems in their housing, which they spent $2 million and got the sprinkler systems up and running in their housing. So,
Nice.
so it was a good. So, when I talked to them, I talked to their board of directors. They told me, I made sure, do you have a succession plan so that if you die tomorrow, who's picking up that position to keep the company running? And so they did. They had everything planned out. Then it turns out 2 years later, they decided to sell it to the Mentor Corporation. And I talked with them, and they're a huge company, and I follow them. And so I know he's getting all the services that he needs.
Yeah. No,
And I'm very happy. I'm very happy where he is. I mean, they screw up sometimes. I'll go and he has his shoes on the wrong feet. And I'll go, hey,
Right.
aren't you watching him?
Yeah,
But that's my
it's-
Joey.
Right.
I mean, I can have him home and tell him go in his room and get dressed, and he'll do the best he can. He'll come back with his shirt backwards, his shoes on the wrong feet.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just the
Inside
way.
Out. I know
Yeah,
that
right.
program
Yeah,
all too
yeah.
well.
So those are the three key choices. And if you decided to go with an ICF like Joey, an intermediate care
Mhm.
facility, it never really takes you off the wait list for waiver funding. So if I wanted to take him out of that facility and move him to a group home, there's no like waiting 20 years. They'll just switch off and they'll move him. So he stays on the wait list, but not in need of services because
Okay.
Medicaid's taking care of everything. So best thing you do is put your child on a wait list for even group homes, because even group homes have wait lists. When I first went to New Horizons Village, Mike, they told me 14 years before a bed would be available. 14 years.
Wow.
9 years later, a bed became available. So what a blessing. It came at the right time because Diane was really ill
Mhm.
and it was really getting very difficult. But it came at, God has a plan, I guess. But he made it work, and Joey was given a spot. And it was a tough transition, but it was a
Sure.
blessing.
Well, and he's adapting well. I love it when you show the group, the monthly meetings. You show pictures of Joey. He's in
Yeah.
he likes his karaoke and,
Oh, my
and
God.
singing now and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah.
And
Yeah, they helped
it
him find his
sounds like
voice.
He's doing great.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. He's nonverbal, but somehow they gave him a microphone and he started singing karaoke, and now he's singing all the time.
Yeah.
So he found a voice, which was, amazing. So
It's
what a blessing.
it's a beautiful thing to watch. So
Yeah, it is. I
I'm
agree,
glad
100%.
I'm glad all that worked out
Yeah.
for you and your family.
So residential, I don't know if you want me to put a plug in for my special
Yeah.
place or not.
No,
Okay, so-
we'll talk about that
Okay,
probably on
let's get
another,
Okay,
another
that's good.
segment. But
Okay.
but no, this is
So-
extremely
So we tapped
Information.
residential. I mean,
Yep.
for our older kids, some of us want our kids to go to work.
Yep.
So there is a government program called VR, Vocational Rehabilitation,
mhm,
that allows our kids to be assessed and evaluated and then be given a job coach and have on-the-job training. And we should never box our kids into just stuffing bags in the supermarket or pushing carts in a parking lot, right? They're more than capable. I mean, I know some kids, some adults, I call them kids, that have their own businesses,
Mhm.
So it's
amazing.
very
Yeah.
possible and VR will help fund startup. They'll provide seed money for startup businesses for your child if you want.
Mhm.
There was one, VR came to one of my meetings and they were talking, and we had a young lady who wanted to start a dog walking business, an actual business, not just,
Sure.
She went
Not
through
just a
washing,
hobby,
grooming.
right?
And the guy said to her, listen, if you really want it, we can help you put together a business model. And if it works, we'll fund it and we'll start your business. So it was pretty impressive to hear that,
Mhm.
that they're not just isolating our kids to, just stuffing bags in the supermarket or
Yep.
stocking a shelf or putting carts, in a parking lot. They can do other things, like,
Build them up to live the
yeah,
best
I mean,
lives possible.
let them find
Yep.
what first of all, we're the parents are the worst. We filter everything on our kids and we say, no, they can't do that.
Right.
Like if you told me 4 years ago that Joey would be singing karaoke and actually reading words and saying the words off of a screen, I would go, yeah, right. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, that's going to happen. And now he does. The words come up on the screen on his iPad and he just sings along word for word and he knows the words. So
Yeah.
it's pretty darn impressive. Now, I would have never thought that, Mike. I wouldn't have done that for Joey. I would have never gotten to that level. So I kind of was in a way in his growth and not knowing what he's capable of doing.
That's normal, though. I say the same thing,
Oh,
John.
yeah, no,
It's
it
like
is.
sometimes as parents, yeah,
We're so
eh,
protective.
we've done, I always say at times that we've taken this thing so far and our Kevin is not responding to us on some things, right?
Mm.
But he'll meet a stranger for the first time, right?
Mhm.
And something will come out of his mouth or he'll respond to them in a way and
Mhm.
it's like, wow, yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
you just need to,
Yeah.
we
Well, I
need to
remember
step back and.
when I first met Kevin and we were talking in the Panera coffee shop, right, with your
Right,
wife and Kevin, and one of the songs came up, grooving, right?
yeah,
Grooving on a Sunday after, and he loved it, and he started singing and talking about it, and
yeah,
it was great. It just happened to be a trigger point for him that he likes music, and that's one of his songs, and so it was pretty cool. But yeah, once you can tap into something that they're good at, then that's it. But we do tend to put those barriers up, and we really shouldn't.
and we
And we
don't
shouldn't let
realize it
others.
though, right? In fairness,
Yeah,
we don't always
right,
realize it, but
right. No,
it's,
we don't.
you're right, spot
And
on
like
though.
that happens a lot with school. A lot of people do the IEPs for their kids, and they get guided by the so-called professional educators, and
Mhm.
really they're stymied because the educators, well, they really only need like an hour of speech, and they'll be fine. When they really need 3-4 hours of speech.
Yeah,
But they don't have the budget or the funding in school, so they can't get it. Right? So you
yeah,
got to fight as an advocate. You got to fight and say, no, 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 no. He's entitled to this service. You need to figure out how to get it, get somebody to give it to him, and let's get this going. Because his goal should be able to, I don't care, recite the national anthem. But he's got to be able to articulate that, and that's his goal. Put it on his IEP, and that's the goal. And in 3 months, if he hasn't achieved that goal, then he needs to continue those services. But parents, we're very humbled. We're so grateful to get any help that we can get that we don't really fight enough for our kids, which is
right.
why it's important to bring other parents to your IEP sessions for your kids if they're in school, because you need someone outside the box who's going to say, no, 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 that's not right. No, no, you need to do this for this person, and advocate for that parent. I mean, I do that. I help parents all the time with IEPs, just talking them through and prepping them and getting them ready, because we really do kind of,
Because it's an important tool as
it's
part of the
vital.
process.
It's
And
absolutely vital. Those are the in-school services that your child needs. They need to have someone one-on-one with them, sitting down and pointing out different objects and shapes and colors, and not just get distracted by a whole classroom of other kids with other behavior issues that are throwing things and they think it's funny and they pick up that same behavior. You know,
yeah,
so like Joey was in a school, he was in class, he was maybe in a third or fourth grade, whatever. And one of the other kids, he was in a special needs classroom, and one of the kids, for whatever reason, was picking up the F bomb. Right,
mhm,
everything was F F F. Joey came home from school and then he just started spouting the word. I was like, well, you didn't get it from me. I mean, I know when I get mad, listen, I'm like every other human being, right?
yeah,
I'll go, but I'm not. It's not everyday language for me. So I
sure.
went to the school to find out what's going on. And so yeah, we have a child who has a behavioral issue, and that's what he does. He's constantly saying that. It's, well, who's working with the child? Oh, nobody. Well, why doesn't he have a speech therapist to help? Someone to help guide him and redirect him and stuff. Well, it's budgeting. And so I sat with that parent and I said to him, you need to get this under control. First of all, you need to find out if you're doing it yourself at home.
Yeah.
If you're the one that's bringing it to the table, you need to be aware of it. Because, you know, we speak sometimes, we say words, we're not thinking, you know, it just comes out.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, over time, they're able to kind of get to that person's understanding, if you will, and they stopped it. They came up with another word, you know, like fruit
Yeah.
or something, you know, like just when you get mad like that, instead of saying F, say fruit, you know? So
Right.
whatever they, I
Yeah.
forget how they actually worked,
Whatever
but
works. Yeah.
they managed to get it so that he stopped and Joey stopped. You know,
Mm.
Joey stopped. You know, it's a same thing with throwing objects. You know, like our kids pick up, they just pick up from other kids' behaviors and other, you know. So you need to be on, as a parent, you need to be on top of that. You know, so our
Absolutely.
kids are a product of the environment.
Always, always.
So
Well,
VR is
John,
another one.
Yeah, no, that's a great option. And
Sure. Two or three other things, if you don't mind, Mike, and then if
yeah,
you want, we can wrap up.
please
I don't.
keep,
Okay,
keep going.
fine, great.
You are
So-
you are
So
keep
here
it
in Florida,
coming, my man.
So here in Florida, for planning from a financial perspective for families,
Yeah.
and I am an ambassador for the program, so full disclosure, I don't get paid. I'm a volunteer. I go out and do speaking engagements on this particular service that they have. But it's very, very important for the financial future of your child. The program is called Able United, and it's a savings investment program that grows like a Roth IRA. It grows tax-free. There is risk involved because it is an investment portfolio, but you're allowed to accumulate wealth for your child up to $100,000, and your child gets to keep Medicaid, Medicare, SSI benefits. So today, without that, if your child's on Medicaid and has SSI, they cannot have a savings account in their own name with over $2,000.
Right.
They have to keep
Yep.
it below $2,000. Otherwise, they start to reduce the SSI benefits and they'll just take it away. So how do you go about being able to accumulate wealth for your child, right? Now, most of us parents for years have taken birthday money or savings bonds that we've gotten, and we just set up a savings account and it's under our name and we just put the money there. And we know,
Mhm.
right? We know that that money's for our kid. So you're kind of hiding it, right? So, and everybody does it. So it's not like it's not known by the world. But this Able United allows to openly and freely accumulate wealth for up to $100,000 while they're on SSI, and anybody and everybody can contribute. So you can do a bake sale at a church, sell cupcakes, take the proceeds of those cupcakes and put it into the savings investment account. You can have grandma write a check and you can put it in the account.
Yeah.
You can do monthly off your own personal checking. You can do monthly contributions. So it's a really good way to accumulate wealth. And the government doesn't look at it as an asset of your child. It's almost like a special needs trust. So it's there for the needs and services of your child, but it's not their money. Same thing with the Able account. It's there for their services and needs, but it's not their money. So if you need to pay for transportation, education, technology softwares for them to help them out, if you're not getting it funded from somewhere else, if you want them to go on a trip, on a cruise, you know, you can just pay for them and someone else to take them on a cruise. And it's just a really good way to really accumulate wealth long-term for your child. Now, here's the other kicker. Once they're off SSI and they're on SSDI or DAC, Disabled Adult Child, which is Social Security Disability Income off of your work record.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a way you can figure that out as a parent is you can go to Social Security, you can look up your employment record, and you can see where it says if you were disabled, how much you would get monthly.
Right.
Let's just say you'd get $2,500 if you were retired and disabled. So your child, when you retire, your child would get half of that as income. So they would go from SSI $755 a month, right,
Mm-hmm.
to $1,250 a month. That's a pretty good increase,
It's a
right?
bump, nice bump.
And that would be
Yeah.
for the rest of their life. So the other thing is when you pass away, they would get a 25% bump on that money.
Okay.
So if you're doing financial planning long term, right? If you got your Able account going and you're accumulating wealth, if you get an SSI and they go to Social Security Disability, you can say, okay, at 42, they're going to start collecting Social Security Disability. off of my work record. They're gonna have that for the rest of their life. That's X income for them on a monthly basis, along with what they can draw from Able account. And then the other thing obviously is a special needs trust, right? If you establish a trust, a special needs trust, I have one, but it's not funded. It'll get funded when I die through a life
Same
insurance
here.
policy, right?
Yep.
So I have a life insurance policy that says the beneficiary is not my son. Never put anything in your son's name because you'll lose all your benefits. So the beneficiary is a special needs trust. And then my daughter is the trustee of that trust. So when I'm gone, insurance company will write a check. It'll go to the trust. My financial advisor will hold the funding in that trust and the investment portfolio for it. And my daughter will then control the ins and outs of the money, the services needed for Joey. So he'll have a
Yeah.
special needs trust. He'll have an Able account. And then he's got his own Social Security disability income. Now, his Social Security disability income is taken 100%, is given to the residential facility that he lives at right now. But
Right.
by law, they have to take $140 out of that money and put it in a savings account for him so that they can take him out. He can go to restaurants, he can buy clothes. That's his cycle of money under their control. So they are the ones who have to keep that under $2,000, right? So there's 3 ways of being able to accumulate wealth for your child's future without impacting government benefits. So it's really something that families really need to look into. And Able United is across the entire country. So every state has an Able United
Right. You
investment
have to,
program.
yeah, you have to sign up in your state of residence though.
That's correct.
And you, and you motivated me, through listening to your presentations monthly in your meetings to finally get going on that. I mean, 2-3
I'm
years
glad.
ago, but so mine is my Able account, Kevin's Able account is through state of Michigan, but that could carry over, it's
Yeah,
easy
you
enough
can-
to transfer when we
Right,
finally
you
do
can-
move to Florida. So,
Yeah, you can transfer it over and there's no loss, no penalties, no nothing. You're fine.
yeah,
Or you can actually leave it in the state of Michigan. You can leave it there and still utilize the services. You can still
Sure.
go and transfer money into an account or buy him something and reimburse it. You can, so it doesn't have to, it's just under the guidelines of Michigan. Like
Right.
in Florida, you can contribute up to $16,000 a year. It's a gift. You're gifting it into that account, right? That's how
yeah,
combined, everybody can contribute 16,000. Now, if Kevin was working on top of that $16,000 a year, he himself can contribute over $12,000 of his own income into that as well.
okay.
So you have 16,000 plus another 12,000, right? That's 25 grand. In 4 years' time, you're at the $100,000 cap if you're able to max into it,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that's pretty impressive. And you can go up to 418,000 when they're off SSI. So,
okay.
and that's based on really how much it costs for a 4-year college. Average college cost in Florida is $418,000 for 4 years, which is why this program is piggybacked to that sum. So if you can get into it,
I didn't know
I
that. That's
wholeheartedly-
interesting. Yeah,
I wholeheartedly ask parents if you can find a way. Parents say, "Well, I don't have any money. I can't do it." Well, there's a way. I know I suggest to families that are still working that they take their 401k, take a 0.5% out of your 401k,
yeah,
and
Fund it.
redirect it into an Able account.
Yep.
So instead of going to your retirement future, you're bringing that 0.5% to your child's retirement future, right? And your net income would be no impact at all, right?
Mm.
Because all you're doing is flipping the money around from your 401k to there. So there's ways of finding monies to get in there.
Oh, absolutely. And,
So-
and I only wish I had done it sooner, but
Look,
now is
I-
better than never. So
I
it's-
waited an entire year before I did it. I read every single document they had because I didn't believe it was true. How can this be true? They're going to screw it. And in the beginning, I think you recall, Mike, they had a provision in there. There was a payback provision
Exactly.
where you
That
had
was
a,
scary. It was a little
yeah.
scary.
And so people really got nervous about it. It was like, what? Wait a second. If I have $100,000 in here and my son or daughter passes away, Medicaid's going to come in and try to recoup that $100,000. Yeah, that was the way it was written,
Yeah.
that they would have it. And a lot of people got offended by it. Me personally, I didn't care, Mike, because the money they had contributed to my son on prescription drugs alone for his medication,
Sure.
if he passes away and there's $100,000 in there and they want to take it, knock yourself
Yeah,
out
you
and give it to
got-
other families. I'm fine with it.
Absolutely.
But
Right.
other families look at it as, hey, that's my child's money and it should stay with me.
Yeah.
So because of that, they actually changed the law. Now that money, when your child passes away, falls to their estate. So now you can have your child's will written that says, upon their demise, whatever is left in that ABLE account goes to wherever you want. Special Olympics, to a nephew, a grandson, a granddaughter, a grandnephew, a dog. I mean, wherever you want to put it,
Yeah.
you can put it. So that really opened up the gateway for a lot of families to reconsider getting on the bandwagon for Able United. Because now they know that they can put money in there, and if anything happens to the child, they have the money. So it's not going anywhere. So that was a big, big thing. And I try to get, it costs $25 to start up the account. You don't have to put another dime in if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. You control how much and whatever you want to put in.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you now, Joey's got a considerable sum of money in his ABLE account over the 4 years, almost 5 years that I'm in it. And I'm really blessed. And yeah, we take the hits on the cycle for the market, but I'm okay because I'm familiar with how that works, right? So I'm not a panic person. But they did also, for that nervousness, set up a money market account in Able United as well. So you can put all your money in just a stable money market account, get
Be conservative or as aggressive
Yeah,
as
you
you
can,
want to
right.
be. But,
Yeah, so you can just do it on behalf of your child, and you're the one who controls the finances in that, right? How much money gets spent. They even have a debit card program for it now, so that you could you can put money on a debit card for your child. Your child can go and just, tap whatever they need,
Right.
so that they don't have to deal with getting lied to on their change and dealing with money, right? Because if you give them a $10 bill and they're supposed to get $5 back, and the guy gives them $2 in pockets, three, right? Because they're a crook, and your child doesn't know the difference, right? Now, at least with a debit card, you just go. If it's $29.30, he taps it, it comes off his account, and when it gets down to a certain amount of money, you can just replenish the money.
Yeah,
on
and
his
you got a trail.
So yeah, and you got an
complete-
audit trail of all the expenditures that are happening against that account. So again, just from a financial perspective and planning perspective, I think it's just a great opportunity to really set goals for your child's needs and services, because no one's going to take care of your child better than you, right? So you got to be able to plan. So I know it's hard, and people living paycheck to paycheck makes it even harder. But if you belong to a church organization or some other foundation, you can do, cake sales. And, in fact, you can teach your child to bake cupcakes and create their own cupcake company, right? Their own LLC, and just do their own cupcakes and sell their own cupcakes and make their own money.
Anything is possible. Like
anything and everything is possible if you're willing to just put it out there and take those risks. You can set up a company. Your son could be the CEO of the company. You could be on the board of directors. You're really controlling everything, but it's in your son's name. And then you can set up a succession plan for that board of directors. Something happens to you, they keep it running, but he's still the one who's in charge of the company, right? Now he's got his own business. So we shouldn't limit our children's abilities because we think they can't do it.
Amen. Totally, John.
Yeah. So ABLE is a very, very important one to be aware of. And then guardianship, I know there's other agencies and stuff, but I definitely want to just tap on guardianship for a minute.
Please.
Because there was some I didn't have personal experience with my child, but I had personal experience with another child, and it was very frightening. So when your child is 18 years old, in every state, they are legally an independent adult, period. So you may think, as the parent, they're living in your home, you're their guardian, you have the rights to say and do whatever they want. And that's true as long as they don't know the difference or have independent thought to be able to choose and pick what they want. But if your child at 18 decides to sign a contract to buy a car because he's with a buddy and they're walking around used car lot, and he decides to sign, that's a legal binding document. They're responsible for the purchase and payment of that car. Now, if you don't have guardianship, you can go and get a lawyer and you can take it to court and you can get it thrown out. It'll get thrown out. Absolutely. This judge will look at your child.
Over time.
Yeah. Right. But time, cost, and money, right?
Yeah.
If you have guardianship of your child, you can simply go to that dealership, take that piece of paper in that contract, and just tear it up. It's useless because they have no legal right to sign their name on that document because they're incapacitated according to the state, right? Because you have guardianship over them. So I had a situation where I was I've been coach for Special Olympics for 100 million years, right? I was in Pennsylvania. I was coaching a basketball team, and then this young lady, high functioning, tremendous athlete, and she was great. She would take the ball, dribble down court, bring Joey with her, take Joey with one hand, dribble down court, get to the foul line, hand Joey the ball, and he would make the basket. So she was very, very good with him and try to help him out. Anyway, we were in a competition, and she had an asthmatic attack, and she really couldn't breathe, and it was really bad. And we called the ambulance to try to get her services and oxygen. And her parents were there. They were there at the event, and they wanted to take the ambulance wanted to take her to the hospital. And the ambulance guy asked the parents, "Are you her legal guardian?" And they said no, because they're the parents, but they're not a legal guardian, right? So she didn't want to go. The girl didn't want to go to the hospital, so they wouldn't take her because she said no. So I was blessed to be able to talk with her about 5 or 10 minutes and started to share with her about being an independent adult, really making wise and mature decisions. And it would probably be a wiser decision as an adult young lady that you really go and let them check you out. So with that, she decided to go. Her parents were able to go in the ambulance with her, and they got it taken care of. That made me switch gears quickly and get guardianship over Joey, because he was now transferring. He only had another year before he transferred out of school. And then, it's open season, right? For whatever,
Sure.
who he's going to be with it. Even if he went into a work program, you just get somebody to, "Hey, Joey, sign this." What does he know? He'll just, okay,
Oh,
right?
exactly.
He doesn't know from
Right.
Adam. So you
Yep.
got to protect your child. Now, a lot of people say, "I don't want guardianship because I don't want to give up my son's rights to vote." Or you don't have to have that level of guardianship. You can have guardian advocacy. You can have power of attorney. You just need to have something that you're protecting your child from themselves, right?
Mhm.
So it's really, really important that once they become legal, 18, every state, you need to try to get ahead of that if you can, and
You're,
you can do it. You can do
yeah.
it for free. You don't have to go to a lawyer. You don't
Right.
have to go to an attorney. You can online. In fact, Lake County Court has 16 PDF files that you can follow through succinctly and just print them off and fill them out for your child. And you can just do your own and bring them to the court and get it done. It costs, I think, $260 to do it by
Okay.
yourself. Now, if you go to an attorney, it might cost you $1,000, $1,100. I mean, it may cost you.
Or more.
Or more, right, depending on who the
what I paid.
depending
10
on who the
years
attorney
ago.
is,
Yep.
depending on their stature and what they think they're worth, right? So, but it's very important to get that written up well so that you're protecting your child from themselves, because they have no intention to do anything malicious for themselves, but they don't know any better. So we as parents need to protect that.
Yeah, exactly.
And just setting someone else to be the guardian when you're gone doesn't make it legal. So I found that out when I said to the judge, "I want my daughter to be his legal guardian when I leave." He said, "Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll have her name there as a potential, but we need to assess her home environment at that time and see if it's in fact a good fit for him. So if she's involved in drugs and alcohol, if she's in an abusive relationship, if it's not a healthy household, they're not going to grant guardianship." So we could say all we want and what we think we want, but really there's rules and guidelines.
It's kind of a reset button.
Right.
Down the line.
Right.
Yep.
So you just gotta be aware of those issues.
Well, the things that you did share on guardianship, John, I'll tell you personally, it made me feel a whole lot better about, what we did years ago when we both my wife Ruth and I got, co-guardianship of Kevin. You're so right. It's extremely important for reasons that, like you described, that you don't even think about either.
Right.
And-
So it takes a lot of pressure off you, right? I mean, once you did that, right, you just like a valve just gets released. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm okay.
Right.
Same thing if you do an Able United account and you start putting money away in that, and you start to see, wow, I got 100, I got 500, there's $1,000 in there. Oh, they need an iPad. Oh, just go get them an iPad, and but you feel like, wow, I'm in control, and I can provide quality of care for my kid, and it's not poor me, and you don't feel like a victim, because you're ahead of the game, and that's the way it should be. None of us should be victims of any of this. We just need to pull ourselves up and take an action. you know, and
Absolutely.
that's all. You know, I had a parent really sad in the Villages, by the way, a mother who was 62 years old, retired in the Villages, had a 42-year-old son. And she went to a jazzercise class, you know, those aerobic classes.
Right.
She had a
Yeah.
heart attack and died.
Yeah.
Now, 2 months before that, she was at my meeting. You know that book that I give out to families called Planning Ahead?
Yes.
Nice little book, right?
This one, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Planning Ahead.
Yeah.
That's a great book. The back
It
end of
is.
that has a lot of documents, a lot of forms to fill out. So anyway, she found it to be very valuable, but she never filled out any of the information on the back. She left it on a coffee table. So it's not a good coffee table book,
No.
right? So me, when she passed away, myself and 2 other family members went to a house. We started to figure out what her son's daily routine was because she didn't have it written down. There was nothing there. And we figured out, oh, he likes to go swimming at 2 o'clock in the afternoon from 2 to 4 at this particular pool. So we volunteered to take him, to get him there until his brother came, and we helped
Mhm.
organize his brother and get him. And you know, the saddest thing happened that she didn't want happen that did happen. She didn't want her son going back to Tennessee to her 85-year-old her mother. And that's exactly what ended up happening. The brother couldn't take care of him because he was independent, career driven in New York City.
Mhm.
So he was alone at his own place, couldn't take care of his brother, didn't see his brother for years. His brother knew sign language. He was a deaf mute person. So, but the brother didn't know because he hasn't been engaged in talking with his own brother, you know.
Yeah.
And so the grandmother at 85 years old has to take back her grandson in his
How
40s.
do you make that work?
Has no clue one about what services are available in Tennessee. So I did whatever research I could, and I provided information, links, and a contact person in Tennessee for the brother. I gave it to the brother because he was here and I was able to work with him.
Mhm.
Hopefully he gave it on to the grandmother and helped out and got that done. But, you know, we all think we're going to have tomorrow, right? I'll do it tomorrow. You know, tomorrow may not come, you know,
Nope.
so you need to do it today, man. You know, just try to get it
Document.
done today.
And I have 2 of those books.
Yeah.
That
And
I
they-
have one that I keep here in Florida and one in
Mhm.
Michigan, but ashamedly, here's self-confession here.
Mhm.
Ruth and I have not completed these things yet, and we keep saying we need to, because you're right. Just the simple things about the routine of your special
his
needs
daily-
loved
right.
one. Everything from the obvious of medications and things like that, but you need to put it all in one
Right.
place, and this
Yep.
booklet
Likes,
is
dislikes, behaviors,
yep.
coach. How do you coach him into something? Like if Joey didn't like to take a shower, right? How do I coach him into a shower? Right? What do I do?
What's the magic words?
Right. How do I bribe him? Do I say, listen, if you take your shower now, we'll go bowling tomorrow? So he likes, you know, Joey loves bowling. I mean, he can
Yeah.
bowl 25 games in a row. He don't care, right? So you got to use those caveats, right? But if I die and you don't know that that's a way to get, and he didn't shower in 3 days because no one knew what to do with him, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're fighting and you're arguing and you want to hose him down, right? You just want to take him in the yard and spray him down because he stinks, right? You got to
Yeah.
give him a shower. So, but if you know that that's a coaching technique, and you got to hold up on it, you know, you got to hold your end. You know, if you say I'm going to take you bowling tomorrow, you got to
Sure.
do that. But that's a technique to get him to do what you need to do, right? You don't eat your dinner. What are you going to do? Starve him to death? You got to find likes, dislikes. And if you have all that stuff written down, something happens to you, it's an easy transition document
It
to someone
is.
else.
Boy, I'm just thinking
So-
of a few things that apply to us, you know,
Yeah.
Ruth and I and Kevin, right?
And you don't have to
Kevin-
use that. You don't have to write it in that book. I mean, you can do it on a computer or on a Word document if you want
Right.
to do those questions, but
Exactly.
you have to have it written down somewhere. And that book gives you a lot of the questions that you think you need to have answers for. Because, right, we go through all the cycle of, I need to know about this, I need to know about this, I need to know about this. And then
Yeah.
what else? Well, if you read that manual and you go to the back, all those questions of what do I need to know? The question's asked for you. And so, oh yeah, I just need to fill that in. Oh yeah, that's right. That's all right. And that's the beauty of the book. Otherwise, it wouldn't really have any value. But to me, it really is it's a good transition tool if you're using it and you're filling it out, or it's just a good starting tool as a parent to get up there and start to go, what's that question again? Oh yeah, this is how. So
Yeah, I think
so
I
that
should,
book
now
is a
that we're
blessing.
talking about that too, John, I think I should probably put this out on my website somewhere. I think there's an
Yeah, I think it's the
organization.
department. Yeah, the Department of Disabled and Disability. It's written on the back of the book. You see, there's the
Yep.
DD.
Yep, exactly.
The Department of I forget what it's called, Disability
Yeah, I got
Council
it.
or something.
FDDC.org. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'll certainly share that with the audience and they can,
Yeah.
go
And-
and
And
grab
those
that thing.
manuals are free.
Right.
I asked them not last year, 2 years ago. I told them I was going to do I was scheduled to do a lot of travel presentations.
Mhm.
They sent me 300 books. Literally last year I had to call them back up and they sent me another 100.
Wow.
So gives you an idea of how many I've given out over the
Yeah.
past 3 years. And last year was a down year, right? I mean, I didn't go
Right.
anywhere, I didn't go anywhere.
As far as
So-
meetings, right?
So, yeah, so I mean, I love giving it to a parent because it gives them something concrete and some comfort. Like, okay, there's something in here it's going to help
I
me.
agree. There's
And
a
it
wealth
is,
of info
you know?
in here.
So they can get it themselves, or they can come to one of my meetings, or
Yeah.
whatever. But if you put it on your website and you put the link for that out on your website for them, they can go and probably request it themselves.
Sure.
Or they can just read it online. I'm old school, so I like having things physical
Yeah.
in my hands because I can
Same
write on
here.
it and I can, so, but yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
we'll-
great
we'll
if you could
share
do that,
that.
Mike. That'd be great because I think it is a really good tool
It
for
is. It
for
pulls
families to plan.
everything together nicely
Yeah,
to
it does.
document. So, John, I think we're coming on a stop here shortly. I think we'll wrap this up. You and I could go forever on this stuff, though. I mean,
I
I,
do have a passion for our kids, right? So
I
Yeah.
love it. It's
I do.
that's what we love about you, John. And by the way, to the audience, I should have mentioned this when I first introduced John. John always refers to us very kindly as his families, right? All of us special needs, mom and
true.
dads and kids. We're John's family, and it's a beautiful thing. And we call him Coach John, right?
There you go.
He's fondly known as Coach John here in the community. So, John, I want to thank you, and I hope this video and the messages, I hope it inspires others. And we just thank you for all you do for this community. And God bless you, my friend. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. And you made this conversation easy for me, so I appreciate it. I was a little apprehensive, a little nervous about it. Wasn't sure how I was going to go, but you kind of got me going, so that's pretty
Yep.
good. Yeah.
No,
So,
that's awesome.
and yeah, I do. I love our family. They're all my family. They're all my kids. I know the kids better than I do the parents, right?
Yeah. And
You know, so you're
that's what
you're
matters
Kevin's
the
dad, right?
most.
You're Kevin's
Exactly.
mom, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just not about the parents, so it's really
Yeah.
about the kids. I mean, I love helping them, and I just love them so much. They're just amazing. I can't say enough for the joy that they bring, because they're so pure and innocent about their stuff, and
Yeah.
what they're doing, and they care. When they love you, oh my God, all my
That's-
kids, they come, they give me hugs, and they're just Coach John, and it just,
You get it,
my
you
heart
get
just
it
gets
all,
filled
you
with
get
joy.
it all back times 10, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah, it really is. So I just want to say too, Mike, that I appreciate what you're trying to do for our children and our families and our community as well. Because, we need more leadership in the communities representing our families and our kids. And it's not easy to step up and step out and be the one to be the voice for our
Right.
kids, So I'm grateful that, you decided not just to go play golf,
yeah.
that you really want to make a
Yeah,
difference.
that's
And you are,
boring
yeah.
anyway, and
And
I'm a
you-
terrible golfer, so yeah.
Well, that makes two of us.
Yeah.
But still, you've made a choice to really take care of Kevin and make sure that his future is well set and well cared for. And through that, with that knowledge, you're going to help share and educate other families and really know that you're touching a lot of lives.
I
And it really is a
appreciate
blessing, So, my favorite movie, It's a Wonderful Life. That is my favorite classic movie,
it.
but
Yeah,
every year I watch it because it allows me to reflect back on life and really see, wow, I was able to help this family in this way. And had I not, who knows what would have happened.
who knows? Absolutely.
So it's really, truly, it's truly a blessing to be able to give. And I certainly do give more than I receive, but That's really not true. I receive so much love and from these families
You,
that,
you give a lot and we all
know,
know it.
yeah.
And again, we can't thank you enough for
yeah,
it.
it's a
So,
blessing. Well, thank you. And I appreciate you allowing me to share this time and opportunity with the families. And a bad joke, I guess, about my organization called ACID. You know, I always say, right? ACID.
Right.
Why ACID? Why
Right.
ACID? Because our kids take us on one hell of a trip.
Yeah.
So for those in my age group, you get it. For those that don't, are going to go whoop right over your head.
We got to find humor in things, John. I
That's
always say humor is what keeps me going. If I
Yep,
can't joke
it's true.
about so you'd go
Oh,
crazy,
you'd be
right? I
insane.
mean,
Yeah,
it's-
absolutely.
Things
Right.
are too stressful
Right.
in life, and so
Right.
yep.
So one last message for your families. When you're told no, just tell the person, thank you for doing your job, but now help me get to yes. What do we need to do to get to yes? Because everybody's, no, we don't have funding. No, we don't have resources. No, we don't have this. Okay, but how do we get there?
Yeah,
You know, like, how do we get there? What do we have to do to make that happen?
yeah.
You know,
It's
and you'd be surprised.
negotiating.
And you'd be
it's
surprised, really, you know, there's, I mean, even with APD, there's funding that is, you don't have to be on a wait list to get services. They
right.
do have what's called a general fund, and they will provide short-term relief. So if you need companionship for your son for 3 days a week to go bowling, go to movies, and that gives you kind of respite for those couple of hours,
Yeah.
you may be on a wait list, but you can get that service paid for by APD while still being on a wait list and not being on the waiver, because they do have a certain percentage of money allocated for exactly that. But parents don't know that. And parents don't ask for that. They don't ask for help. You know, they just think, no, because I'm number 23,062.
Well, you hit
It's
on
not
that.
true.
Yeah, we can
You know?
go on that on another topic too.
Yeah.
Respite. You
We-
mentioned the word respite. That's an
Mhm.
important thing for all of us, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there are ways, like you said, to get that.
Right.
You gotta fight
Well,
and
that
push
new-
for it.
That new group that's coming to the villages, you know, the BB, I don't know if you want to give them
Yeah, yeah, best buddies.
yeah.
I'll
By the way, I
mention
met
that
with Jack, by the
openly.
way. I
He told
met with
me.
Jack. Yeah.
He told
we
me.
spent like
had
2
to-
hours together.
That's what
Yeah.
he told me. He
Yeah.
told me that last week, and I said, "That's great. I'm glad
Yeah.
you guys connected." But yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna do.
And he's
Give-
asked me,
give-
I'm going to consult. I can't
Yeah.
dedicate myself, but I'll consult with him. So when he
Yeah.
puts his committee together, whatever, I'd be happy to be a phone call, interview, sit with coffee, but I just don't
Yeah.
have the bandwidth to really get that involved.
Sure. No, that's an interesting organization, and to our audience out there, stay tuned on that. I'd like to do a similar kind
Buddies,
of
yeah.
podcast on that, you know, with somebody at a national level, because Best Buddies is a huge
Yes.
national organization.
Mhm.
And here locally in the
Yeah.
villages, as you know, they started this chapter.
Yeah.
So I will do a podcast on that. I
Yeah, that'd
think.
be-
So
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'm hoping that he's able to tap the schools too to get some volunteers,
yes,
you know,
yeah,
for
get
just
the
community
younger
service
ones,
credits.
right?
Yeah, community service
Absolutely.
credits. Because if they get more into their peer group, you know, because our kids are adults, but having a senior work with them, they don't have the stamina to really be involved in
No,
a lot of
totally.
things. Like if you want to sit down and do a 300 jigsaw puzzle, that's okay. You know,
Right.
an 85-year-old who loves doing jigsaw puzzles works fine. But if you want to go bowling or play basketball, yeah, 85, I don't think you're going to be a pretty good buddy to be able to do that kind of stuff, right? You know, I want to run around,
Yeah,
bounce the ball,
we
and
need
shoot.
some youth.
So we need youth,
involved on
right?
that
You need
side.
youth, right? And listen, school credits, community service is a great way to build up, you know, credits for school and getting to college.
It's a win-win.
Yeah,
yeah.
it absolutely is.
And the
So,
kids participating will
Yeah.
feel good
Yep.
about it. So
yeah. So, and I hope
agree.
that they're able to get it done. And that should be another podcast for you, absolutely,
Yeah.
to get people connected with that because it is a nationwide program. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
John. Well, thank you.
thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you
I appreciate
again.
it, buddy.
I really
Good job.
enjoyed having you.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.